Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons, and news writer for Sports Illustrated.
I like the new intro, Blake. I saw you tapping away at it while we were watching the countdown go for the live stream here. That's snappy. I think that's good.
It was a last minute. It's something I've been meaning to do, so might still workshop it a bit, but figured we talked about it already, needed some updating, so just rolled with it.
Well, we needed that SI shout out in there, so look, I think every week now from here on out until you really settle on how you want to phrase it, I'll just give you a grade for what it is with the intro. Let's go, I don't know. Is it ruining the curve if we say B+ there? Like, I think that was snappy. It was good. Could that improve? Maybe, but I also don't want to come out too hot and be like, yeah, A, and then have you revise it. You know what I mean?
I'll take the B+, especially because it was literally a last second thing. So yeah, it definitely has some improvement, but we're almost there.
Well, speaking of last second stuff, we were just talking about the play-in a little bit before we went live here, and the Chicago Bulls did not take the Miami Heat down to the final seconds at all. I don't think last week either of us predicted that they would lose. I think we both had them. Did we both have them making the playoffs as the 8th? I think we did.
I think so. Yeah, I know.
Oops.
I definitely did. And yeah, we mentioned this when we were talking earlier, but I was definitely fooled by the Bulls' March run when they were playing a lot of teams who probably didn't care. I still think that they're an exciting young team, a lot to figure out, but I was not expecting their play-in game to go that way. And the play-in as a whole, I mean, like some good storylines with like Steph and versus Ja. That game wasn't that great either, but hopefully the games, we're recording Thursday night, so the last game's on Friday night, the final elimination games. Hopefully those will be a little bit better.
And just for fun, I'm going to have both of us go ahead and just give the picks for that because, why not? We've already been wrong once. We're going to keep being wrong. Why not have some fun with it? But just a little fun note. So we were both of us looking up Matas Buzelis' splits right on the season. His best month was in the month of March. Guess who else had their best month of the season in the month of March? And this will come back up in a little bit, but that's why I know.
Because of the context that we're talking about this in, I'm going to guess Ron Holland.
You are correct. Ron Holland had the best month of his season in March of this year. So, I don't know. Just maybe that's just points to rookies taking some time to figure things out. And once they finally get late into the season, they got a little bit more of their sea legs underneath them. And you can see a little March bump late in the year.
And they're playing against some familiar G League players as well who are getting converted to NBA deals. I'm only kidding there just because of the G League Ignite connection, but yeah, some interesting like lineup. I feel like the Pistons didn't see a lot of that though, honestly. Like
I don't think so either.
Yeah, March is like the classic month. Like there's a new guy you've never heard of before. I think the Bulls probably experienced that a lot and some of how their schedule played out. But yeah, I feel like the Pistons didn't run into a lot of that.
Strength of schedule thing, right? I mean, the Pistons had a tough end of the year after that All-Star break. Those last 20 games, I believe over half of them were against teams with a winning record, if I remember right. I guess don't quote me on that one. But I know that they had one of the tougher strength of schedules to finish out the year in the league. And, of course, makes it all the more impressive that they, I believe, finished out with a winning record. And now here they are sitting as a 6th seed and staring down at the New York Knicks with that 3-1 regular season record against them. Before we get to that, play-in picks. Bulls versus Hawks. Who you got?
Heat versus Hawks.
Oh, sorry, Heat versus Hawks. No, yeah, we were just ragging on the Bulls. My bad. Yeah. My bad.
You know what? The Heat looked good, but I'm not gonna let one game fool me. I think the Hawks will pull it out, especially at home. I think Trey will find a way, and I mean they've been such a different team without Jalen Johnson after he went down, but still love Dyson Daniels. I mean, I don't think so they'd play the Cavs. I would be surprised if the Hawks I would be surprised if either of these teams get more than one game, if that, honestly. But I think the Hawks have it tomorrow.
Give me the Heat on an Eric Spoelstra special. I don't know. It feels like they've maybe figured it out. Eric Spoelstra just seems to get his team in order the night before the playoffs every year. I don't know how he does it, what like magic speech he has, where it seems like every year, even if the team is kind of backing into the playoffs, all of a sudden they show up and, wow, the Heat look pretty good. But it does happen consistently enough, so I feel like you give me the Heat there. What about in the West? Yeah, Heat culture. It's on the court. It has to be true. Also, shout out Mimsy313.
Yeah, in the West, you know what? The Grizzlies have kind of stumbled into where, like, just the end of the season. But I was surprised. So Wednesday night, the Kings, Mavs, the 9-10. I was really surprised that the Mavs took care of the Kings pretty handily. And I mean, what a train wreck of a season post trade deadline and everything that's going on there. I think the ESPN broadcast said that Mavs GM Nico Harrison, the most popular guy in Texas, said that the team's packed for 8 days to get through the play-in and go to Oklahoma City. I just don't buy it. And AD is that good that maybe he takes over and they get through, but I think the Grizzlies will end the Mavs season, and then it'll be pretty interesting what happens from there.
Kind of a battle of dysfunction, right? With the Grizzlies firing their coach, and then now you got them going up against the Mavericks doing that wild thing that they did back at the trade deadline. Just to be different, I guess give me Anthony Davis with something to prove. He played really well against the Kings. And, Ja Morant, smaller guard, even though he's incredibly athletic, the Mavs keep throwing out like long, rangy defenders. It seemed to do a number on the Kings there, or at least offensively to them. So, I don't know, maybe that length and athleticism slows down Ja Morant enough where Dallas can squeak one out. I don't know. I'm with you, though. That's a sweep for OKC. Regardless, they look like a juggernaut. So,
I'd honestly, I mean, I feel bad for Mavs fans if they have to go through like a series. Like they've been through so much. And hey, I mean, I'm sure you want to be in the playoffs, but just like no draft capital, traded your star. I don't know. I feel like there needs to be a reset, but at the same time, it seems like in Dallas, like there's not going to be any major like coaching shakeups or front office shakeups. It's just like, what's going on there?
All right, let's talk about this playoff matchup our Pistons have with the Knicks. I do not get tired of the fact that we got to avoid the play-in entirely, right? We didn't even have to. These were just games we got to watch for fun. No stakes. We don't care. It doesn't matter. Go Pistons. It's amazing. But, all right, here's the game I wanted to play. All right, 3 things you think you know under 2 different conditions. So we're each going to talk about 6 things. Maybe we overlap, maybe we don't. But if I tell you right now that the New York Knicks win this series, doesn't matter how many games, the New York Knicks win this series, what are 3 things you think you know about the series with that outcome? We'll go one by one.
Okay. You know what? You go first because I think my first one's a little similar, and I don't want to steal your thunder.
Okay. All right, we'll do that. I think that I know if the Knicks win this series, Karl Anthony Towns becomes a 2-way player against the Pistons. I have full confidence that Karl Anthony Towns will score points and get rebounds and have a couple assists, maybe even shoot some threes against Detroit. However, he has struggled a bit defensively. He's under 2 stocks per game, which any listener, longtime listener of this podcast knows that is bad for a big. Not just not good, that is bad for a big. The Knicks are 25th in opponent field goal percentage allowed this year, and the Knicks are 20th in paint points allowed this season. So they're giving up the fifth worst opponent field goal percentage, and the 10th most points in the paint this year. They need Karl-Anthony Towns to be a good rim protector and a good contest guy. In order to change that, they need him to alter shots, get steals, be disruptive on defense. So I think if the Knicks win, Karl-Anthony Towns is not only effective offensively, but he figures out that defensive side of the ball, at least for a series.
Yeah, and my first was similar. It was also about Cat, but a little different. My first thing was if Cat's able to exploit the Pistons on the perimeter, especially in pick and roll scenarios. But I think the point on defense is a good one, because like the Knicks as a whole have struggled at times a bit defensively, which is interesting because they have OG Anunoby, Michael Bridges, Josh Hart. Like I feel like it's not a roster you'd look at and think that they've had their trials and tribulations a lot defensively. And I mean, Cat's a big part of that. He's not like a staunch defensive center. I think that's why Minnesota went out and traded for Rudy Gobert and did that whole experiment. So it is an interesting one. I think the Pistons are gonna, like, obviously everything's gonna run through Cade, but who's gonna be your number two, your number three offensively? And I think the Knicks defensive game plan, obviously Cade's going to be at the top of that, like trying to eliminate what he's trying to do. And can the other guys make shots when the Knicks are trying to take him out of the game? But just going back to mine, and if Cat is able to get it going, especially from three, I think that might be hard for the Pistons to keep up with, just because we've seen a number of games this season where Detroit's playing a team with a stretch big and they just get 3, 4, 5 threes, whatever it is. And that's just hard to keep up with, honestly.
So let me ask you this then, right? If the Knicks win, then you're saying Cat goes off from three. He's a monster offensively, especially from the perimeter. How do the Pistons stop that? Right? How do the Pistons prevent that one from happening so they could avoid this one of the three things you think you know?
I think they have to stay out of foul trouble first and foremost. Like, I feel like a lot of times with how the Pistons do, like if Jalen Duren's in drop coverage and Cat shoots a three, like that's a hard recovery, and like a lot of times it ends up resulting in a foul or like landing in the shooter's landing space. So I think if you can at least find a way to do that, or maybe just try to do something different. Maybe it's having Asar Thompson defend Cat, whatever it is. I think they just need to throw something a little bit different and not let it, if it does start to happen, if Cat does start to shoot and make a lot of threes, just you got to change it up, find a way to limit it. Because I feel like I'm remembering the Miles Turner games where he killed the Pistons from three. And
Lopez too.
Yeah, Lopez. Like, it seems like they always make one and then it just snowballs from there. So I think you just got to do something to nip that in the bud and not let it get out of hand.
Sports Time says, wonder if Karl-Anthony Towns is going to work on the perimeter a lot more and increase his three-point attempts. I think if you're a Knicks fan, that's what you're hoping for. Because I'm with you. I mean, short of starting Isaiah Stewart and matching his minutes 1-to-1 with Karl-Anthony Towns, which I don't think you want to do unless he forces your hand into that, the Pistons, they can choose, right, which star for that Knicks roster do you want to slow down. I'm confident that Asar Thompson can be a good defender against Jalen Brunson. I am confident Asar Thompson can be a good defender against Karl-Anthony Towns. So which of those two would you rather have him start on? I lean to Brunson, but of course, like you said, right, that brings up the problem of Karl-Anthony Towns. And I think the same is true if you put Asar on Towns right away, right? Who's going to guard Brunson? Because you probably don't want it to be Cade. But moving on to the second thing. The second thing I think I know if the Knicks win this series is that they put the brakes on the Pistons fast break game. All right, the Knicks play the 5th slowest pace in the NBA this season, and they have given up the 10th fewest fast break points per game this year as a team, okay, to the opponent. So I think that the Pistons, as we know, their offense relies heavily on the ability to get out and run. If the Knicks can stop that, force the Pistons to play their game, which, for whatever it's worth, that's usually how the playoffs go. All right, playoffs usually mean that teams have to slow down because we can be a little bit more physical, teams can check a little bit more, bunch of reasons. But if the Knicks can really slow the Pistons down, I think that is a good sign for them if you're a Knicks fan, right? If you're a Knicks fan, you want Karl Anthony Towns to be scoring well and playing solid defense, and you definitely want to stop the Pistons from running. So that's my second one.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if you flip-flop it, like, I think that would be a reason that the Pistons win the series, which we're gonna talk about in a bit, so we won't get too into it, but like,
we had to bury the lead, right? I mean,
yeah,
the podcast.
That's the Pistons game, and that's like, I mean, we don't know for sure, but it kind of seemed like toward the end of the season, the Pistons preferred this matchup with the Knicks, and I think that could be a big reason why. Like, the Pistons, if they play their game, they can easily exploit the Knicks if Asar Thompson's able to make plays defensively and help the Pistons get out and run in transition. Like, that's a path for the Pistons to pick up a few games and potentially steal the series.
Agreed. All right. Why don't you give your third one here?
Yeah. I think so. I think my second one, I didn't say that yet. My bad. No, you're good. My second one is just simply the Pistons turn the ball over too much. I think can be this team's Achilles heel, and it's something we've talked about at length before, even before they had this run and turned into a good basketball team. Like, that was the conversation. And if you just go by the numbers, like, the Pistons average 2 more turnovers per game compared to the Knicks, which isn't a crazy amount, but if you look, like, that puts the Knicks in the better half of the league in terms of turnovers, and the Pistons in the bottom half. So, I mean, Cade's going to get a lot of pressure defensively. Of course, he's going to have turnovers, but if you can limit them, and then also just the guys around Cade need to limit turnovers as well. Just don't make anything easy for the Knicks. And I know that's a lot easier said than done, but I think if the Knicks are able to force turnovers, especially with how they've like struggled defensively at times throughout the season, then that's going to make things a lot harder for the Pistons.
And I'm trying to find the stat here that I did earlier, and I'm just struggling to jump through NBA.com's team stats. But I believe that the Knicks are actually one of the best teams this season in points off turnovers. Let me see if I could find it really quickly here. Sorry, bad podcasting. Last one to check. 1 second. Well, they limit points off turnovers for the opponent really well, to your point there. But yeah, I believe they're a top 5 team in points scored off turnovers this season, right? So they force a decent amount of turnovers. They themselves do not turn the ball over, and then they score very well off the other team's turnovers. That is a winning formula. They've been doing it all year. And as you said, the Pistons' turnovers have been a problem, right? Not only this season, but going back multiple years at this point. So I think that's a great call. I would say the same thing. My last one was foul trouble. I think if the Knicks can get Detroit into foul trouble, then the Knicks will probably win. And this would, by the way, be fairly unusual. All right, so this is part of why I think that this would be such a strong indicator for the Knicks, because the Knicks are actually 23rd in the NBA in free throw attempts per game as a team. Like, they do not get to the line all that often. I know Jalen Brunson has the reputation of being a bit of a foul merchant. Hasn't really played out for the rest of the team, right? They have not gotten to the line often. So if in the playoffs they do, right? They get Detroit into foul trouble. They parade to the free throw line all game. And they continue to do those other things that they do very well, because this is a good, talented basketball team that is strong enough on both sides of the floor. I think that's a backbreaker for Detroit.
Yeah, that's a huge one too. I mean, I think that's another. We can flip flop all these, but like if the Pistons are able to stay out of foul trouble, like, and it mainly like Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson, and Isaiah Stewart too. Obviously, if Cade gets in foul trouble early, like that's a backbreaker too. But I think those guys and your main defenders like just can't play yourselves out of game. So I totally agree with that one. My other one, I'm actually going to do a little changing on the fly. The last one like that I had was if the Knicks like eliminate Cade and make other players beat them, which I still think is possible. But Cade is like so good at, even if his like shot creation and his scoring is limited himself, he's really good at keeping his teammates involved. And I don't really see a way that New York can totally eliminate Cade. I mean, they might, but I don't see a way that actually happens. So I'm going to switch to, and this is something that I picked up on listening to the Pistons Pulse with you, Bryce Omari, and you guys had James Edwards on. Like, he was saying how the Knicks don't shoot that many threes, and just looking it up, they're bottom 4 in 3-point attempts as a team. So I think if they are able to get hot from deep, like kind of similar to what I was saying with Cat, but the other guys too, like especially Michael Bridges, who's been up and down this season. Like we've seen him make a lot of threes at times. If those other guys are able to really get it going, like I think that will be tough for the Pistons to keep up with too, just because I feel like it's something that they wouldn't necessarily expect.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's a strong one. All right. Let's go to the fun side of this. Let's go to fun. I'll let you open it up.
Okay.
If the Pistons win this series, they upset the New York Knicks, what are 3 things you think you know for sure will happen in that series?
So my first one, and I didn't really rank these in order, and I know we're going to talk about Cade, but I didn't include Cade in mine because I think like
you're a better man than I.
Well, yeah, we're going to talk about Cade with yours too. But my first one was Malik Beasley is who he is. Like, he does what he's been doing all season. He scores, he puts up a lot of threes and makes a lot of threes. I mean, he would have been the leading 3-point makes shooter. I said that incredibly poorly if Ant didn't take 18 attempts in his last game of the season. So like, he is a top 3-point shooter in this league, not a player that the Knicks have. And he's like an incredible asset for any playoff team to have. So I think like his role, I think, is going to be similar. Maybe he'll see some more minutes just with the rotation shorting, but he averaged just above 16 points a game this season. If he can get that to like 20 in this series, I think that's a way that the Pistons can win, because even if he's getting smothered defensively, like he's a tough shot maker too. So I think a lot of what the Knicks are going to try to do is let the other Pistons that aren't named Cade Cunningham beat them. And that doesn't mean Malik Beasley isn't going to get a lot of defensive attention, because he is. But if he's able to go for around like 20 tonight, score an extra bucket, an extra 3 than he does, which is asking a lot because he already makes a lot of threes. But I think he's capable of doing that, and it could be a game changer in this series.
The Pistons are desperate for somebody to step up as a legit second scoring option here. And Malik Beasley's as good an option as anybody on this roster, right? I think the easy answers for that are either him or Tobias Harris. But Malik Beasley's been the second best scorer on this team in terms of points per game. Tobias Harris is third, right behind him. Obviously, excluding Jaden Ivey, right, who's out with that injury, although practicing again. So actually, maybe there's a little bit of excitement there, some hope there. But regardless, yeah, I'm right there with you. I think even if Cade is going off every single game that they play in this playoff series against the New York Knicks, I think you still need Malik Beasley to, maybe it doesn't have to be 20, but 18, 17, something in that range. That would be huge. Just an increase from where he's been during the regular season. If he could pull that off, if the Knicks decide to just send extra bodies at Cade and the Pistons are able to rely consistently on Malik Beasley to just tear the Knicks up from three, yeah, I think I agree with you. If the Pistons win, that seems like a really likely way that they did it, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the biggest question for me for the Pistons coming into this season, right, is like who's going to be that number two. I think it's the biggest question for this team in the long term. But in the interim, for sure, like I think they have plenty of guys who are like capable of going off at any given night, but it's just like, who's it going to be? And that's what like a lot of teams go through in the playoffs too.
So my first one, I titled it Cade is a superstar. And what I mean by that is not that what everyone expects happens, right? Because of course, honestly, I think it is a foregone conclusion that he's going to be balling against the Knicks here. I mean, they've not had an answer for him all season. Nobody's had an answer for Cade this season. He's just that good. I think you put the bright lights on him and he's just going to step up. So I think his averages are going to be nuts in the playoffs here. But what I mean by he's a superstar is he gets to the line a lot. I think Cade Cunningham, if the Pistons win this series, Cade Cunningham plays so well and is so impactful, in part because of the box score numbers he can put up, but also because of the foul trouble he puts the New York Knicks defenders in against the league, right? So just in general, after the All-Star break, Cade Cunningham averaged 6.2 free throw attempts per game. I think that could go up. I think that could go up in the playoffs where he's getting more attention. We have possibly more half-court basketball being played, even though the Pistons are hopefully going to run quite a bit, right? The pace is going to slow down. The game's going to get more physical, and Cade's just going to have more opportunities with the ball in his hands to try and make something happen. I think if he can get to the line maybe 7 or 8 times a game, which it's a lot, I know, but he's already at 6. If he can up that here in this series against the Knicks, look out. Look out.
Yeah, and especially what you said with the Knicks getting into foul trouble, like if that happens, Tom Thibodeau would not be happy. And who knows what we'd see, but obviously the narrative is always how Tibbs is running his players into the ground, like playing a lot of minutes in the playoffs, which is true. I mean, maybe all the talk about it is a little bit overblown, but I mean, he wants to go 7, maybe 8, and have his starters in the game for 40 minutes a game. So if he's not able to do that, that causes some trouble for the Knicks.
All right, let's go to number 2. Do you want to take it?
Yeah, I'll take it. My number 2 was about Ausar Thompson. I think he has been probably the second best Piston after Cade since he entered the starting lineup, and I think he's super important. We talked last week just about what's his offensive game going to be, and I think that's still a big question too. But I think if the Pistons can find a way to win this series, like I think it'll be partly because Ausar Thompson is making defensive plays and helping the Pistons get out in transition and run, like what we were just talking about with the Knicks. If they're able to limit that, I think Ausar is the guy who is going, like he can be the main catalyst for that. So if he's able to do that, and he, like all of these young guys, hasn't played playoff basketball before, so we don't know what it's going to look like. But if he's able to do what we know he's capable of and get the Pistons to play their game, then that goes a long way in a 7-game series.
Here's the stat that you want to know that backs up exactly what you're saying to a T. All right. No team has turned Jalen Brunson over more than the Detroit Pistons have this season. All right. He has 14 total turnovers in 4 games against Detroit. That is 3.5 per game. He only averages 2.5 on the season. Nobody else is at that high of a total. Why? Because it's a Thompson that is generally getting that matchup against him. So if that continues, I just ruined the second point for me. But look, I think if that continues into the playoffs here, maybe even more so, right? If Asar Thompson is turning over Jalen Brunson and the Pistons are able to run off of that, get transition opportunities off of that, like they've been able to do during the regular season, right? If that can be bankable, that's huge. Because not only is it letting the Pistons get out and run, but it's also negatively affecting Jalen Brunson. The one guy I think, look, I know Karl Anthony Towns is that floor spacing big, and that has everybody concerned. Rightfully so. Rightfully so, the Pistons have struggled with those. I'm most worried about Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson is an incredible basketball player. He can impact the game offensively in so many ways for that Knicks team. He's the head of the snake. If you could slow him down, if you can make him a little bit more turnover prone, make him just a little bit less efficient and effective over the course of the game, and Asar Thompson's probably the one that's going to be asked to do that. If he can be successful, that is a game changer for Detroit. So I agree with you. That is my second one as well. The Pistons are able to create some turnover-worthy plays from Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, and that's a great stat. And even just like from the games, I feel like Jalen Brunson has been super bothered by this team. Like he wasn't, maybe it was a product of the night, like not getting all the calls that he wants and stuff. But I feel like that's definitely something that's happened over the games that these two teams have played over the season. And I think the Pistons have seen that that's a formula that will help them win some games. I mean, you never know what the whistle is going to be like and everything like that. But I think the Pistons definitely have the ability to cut out Jalen. Not cut, like he's going to score, but limit him more than probably a lot of other teams could.
What's really interesting, too, with the Jalen Brunson question with this is this season against Detroit, he not only averaged more points per game than he does on the season, but he also shot better from the floor than he did during the season. The only thing, actually, and better from three-point land as well, if I'm remembering correctly, the only thing that really stands out as a negative from him are turnovers, and his free throw percentage was in the gutter against Detroit. I don't know why that was. You would expect some sort of regression to the mean since he is a good free throw shooter, and he was shooting like, I believe it was 62% from the free throw line in games against Detroit. So that one's probably not bankable. But I think the turnovers more so go to the feeling that you have and that I had as well. Like when you're watching those games, when we watched those games, it felt like Jalen Brunson just wasn't as impactful as he had been in years past against Detroit. And I think that is the turnovers. So he's less efficient out there on the court, even though he's shooting the ball well. He's turning the ball over more than he usually does. That's not good. That's not efficient. And then I think you can compare him to Cade, who was, everything that Brunson was and more. So on the direct comparison, he's losing that head-to-head matchup where that hadn't been true in the past either. But I really think that the turnovers here are extremely important. If the Knicks, because they play so slow, because they don't allow points in transition all that often, if the Pistons can find ways to do what you said, get out and run, and they need to do that by forcing turnovers, then you're putting the Knicks out of their comfort zone, which that's how you do an upset, right? You get that other team that's favored, you get them out of their norm. You find a way to kind of break their shell a little bit and get them uncomfortable. And I think the Knicks are not necessarily built like a team that would respond super well to that. So I'm with you. I think that's the path here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree there. My my last one, I think Tobias Harris is a huge player in this series. If he can be what he was to end the season, he averaged just over 17 points a game in February, just over 14 in March. Those are both high numbers over his season. We know the discourse and like everything that happened in Philly about what he did and in the playoffs. And I mean, I don't see a reason he'll totally just drop off. But again, back to the bigger conversation that number two, who's going to be the number 2 and number 3 guy for the Pistons. I think Tobias is the guy that you go to and try to get a bucket when you need it. So if he's able to make those shots like we've seen him do over these past couple months and however many games that was, I think that will be a huge like swing toward the Pistons direction in being able to pull out this series.
Might I interest you in another name? Not necessarily as the second scoring option, but as maybe a guy that can step up and make a big impact on this series.
Yeah. Can I guess?
You can. Yeah.
I'm gonna guess Tim Hardaway Jr.
That's a good one, especially since this is a revenge series for Tim Hardaway Jr., but it is not correct. I do think he's going to play well. Like, I think with Tobias Harris, too, the step back that both of those guys took in the playoffs last season, I don't think that's representative of the type of players that they are when it actually comes to playoff basketball. I mean, they've historically been much stronger than that, and they've both had really good years where they were a little bit more of a roller coaster last year. Less so Tobias Harris, but certainly with Tim Hardaway Jr. I mean, he was, by the end of the season, kind of in and out of the rotation in Dallas, right? Where now he's just been consistently a starter all year. So I'm not so worried about that. I haven't seen a lot of people worried about that, but I think that's the correct position to take. So I do think Tobias is going to take a step up and be the guy that we've seen, and that's going to be huge. The name I have in mind, Ron Holland. I think I just have a feeling. I don't know exactly what it is, but he's been coming on strong here down the stretch. He's a rookie with the right kind of mindset and absolutely nothing to lose here. Right, so if you look at what he did in his best month of the season was March. In March, he averaged 8.1 points, 2.6 rebounds, 1.6 assists. That's over 15 games, and he was doing it in, I believe it was about 18 minutes a night. If you just want to look at what he did against New York, because he's had some solid games against New York recently, putting up, I think, 13 points in a half against them. He had 18 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, and then I think here's the real killer, all right? We're all expecting this rotation to get pared down just a little bit, and I think all of us are expecting Fontecchio to be the odd man out since he only played about 6 minutes in that last game against the Knicks. So in games that Ron Holland has averaged between 20 and 29 minutes, has played between 20 and 29 minutes, you want to take a guess at what his averages are, like relative to his best month of the year? Better or worse?
I'd say better.
Yeah, it's better. It's almost 10 points, almost 4 rebounds, and an assist on 53, 24, 68. Like, when he gets minutes, he has been effective. He has been really effective. And now he's just building confidence, right? So I think the Pistons they're looking for someone on this team to step up. And by step up, it doesn't have to be the secondary scorer. They need that, but they need stepping up in a lot of ways. They need someone that can be impactful defensively. They need someone who can get some timely baskets, who can maybe force some transition opportunities and be a threat in transition, right? They need maybe a couple of nice timely threes when the Knicks go ahead and double Cade and he's got to get the ball out of his hands. I think Ron Holland can be that guy. I think Ron Holland, if the Pistons win the series, to me, they need somebody unexpected to make a very strong positive impact, and my bet is that that is Ron Holland.
Yeah, and I mean, he could very well be, depending on the lineups he's playing with, he could very well be that the Knicks, the guy that the Knicks are like not forget about, but the guy that they're like, okay, we're gonna let Ron Holland beat us just because like he isn't a good 3-point shooter yet. He's a rookie and he just might be that guy. So if he's able to take advantage of that and cause the Knicks to bring more attention to him, that just like opens things up for everyone else too. So I'm with you. I mean, it's super interesting because he's a rookie and isn't even really in like all rookie conversations, but I think he can have like a huge series too. Like I don't think he'll go off for like 20 points at all, but if he could get to like 10, above 10, like that's huge for this team.
And the killer too is that it's either him or Tobias Harris that I would say is the second best on this team at getting to the free throw line right now, which we know in the playoffs is going to be extremely valuable. Like that is an extremely valuable means of scoring the basketball in the playoffs in the NBA. So we're hoping that Cade can do that more, keep up the trend, and even increase it from what he's been doing after this All-Star break. We want it from Tobias Harris, and I think you're going to get it out of Ron Holland because he's been flashing it for about 2 months now, but he is really difficult to stay in front of in the half court. He can get to the rim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they'll need it.
And he's like pretty good at moving off the ball too. And like he can, like, I feel like the Knicks have beat the Pistons a lot on like backdoor cuts. I feel like Ron Holland can do the same thing if he's getting that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get into our questions here. So this was a live question from Sports Time, but thoughts on the double big lineup with Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson if the Knicks do decide to implement it? How would the Pistons counter that, do you think?
I think, and I'm interested to hear what you think, because like my gut is kind of like, I feel like the Pistons would be able to exploit this. Obviously, it depends on the personnel that are on the floor, and you're not going to be able to get to the rim, score at the hoop as easily. But I feel like no matter how you slice it, they have enough shooters to make it so make the Knicks like scramble if they do have two bigs on the floor. Especially if you have like Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. at the same time out there at the same time. I know like obviously Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren play together a lot, so that maybe allows the Knicks to run these two big lineups. But I think off of them, the Pistons have the ability to exploit it. And I feel like it's really just a matter of being able to knock down your shots to make Tibbs do something different if that's something he wants to do.
I agree with you. I actually think if it were me, right, if I'm a Knicks fan, I think this would be a really big mistake. What is the one thing that we as Pistons fans are most worried about with Karl-Anthony Towns? We are most worried that Jalen Duren is going to get killed in drop coverage by Karl-Anthony Towns' ability to shoot the three. If you stick Mitchell Robinson out there, I'm putting Asar on Cat. Mm-hmm. And then Jalen Duren just gets to guard a traditional big man. I think that this actually helps Detroit on the defensive side of the ball. By NBA averages this year, they are a better defensive team than they are an offensive team, right? So if you're the Knicks, if you lean into this lineup, you're making it easier for Detroit to guard you, and they're already pretty good at doing that. I think this would be a big mistake from Tom Thibodeau. If he did this and you're JB Bickerstaff, then awesome. Stick with your usual guys. Have, maybe Tim Hardaway Jr. try to check Jalen Brunson and be physical and just live with what he's going to do on that end, and then run. Make Mitchell Robinson move. Make Karl-Anthony Towns move on the perimeter. Get some switches. Kill those big men in the switches. I would be excited. I think if the Pistons see this, I would be really pumped. I would be pumped if they whip this out. This is a mistake from the Knicks.
Yeah, and that I think Cade would definitely enjoy this and like hunt switches with these guys,
Yeah,
and I think
because who are you pulling out of that Knicks starting five to lean into this? Is it Josh Hart?
yeah, I mean,
Because if it's not, it's
probably.
McCall Bridges, it's OG Anunoby. Like, it's surely not Jalen Brunson. Who is Mitchell Robinson taking minutes away from out of that core group of guys that, we've talked about how Josh Hart is a really good matchup if you're a Knicks fan for trying to slow down Cade. He hasn't been all that effective at it this year. No one on the Knicks has been this year. And as we said, no one in the league has been all that effective at slowing down Cade. But Josh Hart's probably your best bet.
Yeah.
Are you going to bench him for a big?
Right.
Come on.
Yeah. And it's a way to, like what we were talking about with either team getting in foul trouble. Like this is a way that the Knicks could find themselves in foul trouble. And maybe it's not Cat or Mitchell Robinson, but it's the other guys who are trying to help in pick and roll defense. And they have to scramble to close out on Malik Beasley for a 3 and pick up a foul there. So, I mean, it could work. We don't know, but I immediately when I see it, I'm like, I think it's something that the Pistons could pick apart.
Yeah, I agree. Like what I know I keep saying it. If I see this, if I'm JB Bickerstaff and they trot that lineup out, I'm just pumped because I don't even have to think. You just play your starting five. Just get that starting group back out there and let them attack this. Because I think that, like you said, there are multiple ways that you could attack this offensively. I think Cade probably has a field day because now there's really no one that can stop him. And then, yeah, MC313, personally, I'd love to see Cade turn Mitchell Robinson into a traffic cone. Yeah, he would. He would if he gets that switch. You'd be absolutely petrified if you're a Knicks fan about Cade Cunningham getting to isolate Mitchell Robinson in space. That just is a nightmare. So, yeah, I hope we see it. That'd be great. I doubt it because I think Tom Thibodeau is a pretty smart basketball guy. Let's do this one here from our guy Rames. Says, what does the minute split look like between Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren in this series? Does Isaiah Stewart end up playing more than he averaged in the regular season? And for context, he was right at about 19 minutes per game.
Yeah, so Jalen Duren averaged 26 minutes a game. Isaiah Stewart was at 19.9, which is a tragedy because I think he was that close to being eligible for all defense. But it is what it is. I do think we see Stu a little bit more, maybe up his minutes like by a few. I think Duren will probably be right around where he's at, but I think this is one that could definitely fluctuate because I think these are your two biggest threats to get in foul trouble. So depending on how games shake out, like one of them could be less, one of them could be a lot more. Obviously you have to do everything you can to like not get into that situation, but I think that is the biggest swing with it. But I mean, with Duren, I don't know if I really see him going up more than 26, but Stewart, I could definitely see that.
Let's bring back the game that we played to open up the show. If I told you that Isaiah Stewart averaged more minutes per game in this series than Jalen Duren did, are you surprised, and is that a good thing?
I am surprised, and I would guess that it had to do with foul trouble. Just because, like, I think the role that Stewart's playing right now is perfect for him. And when he was starting, we saw him get into foul trouble a lot. Not to say like he can't play more minutes than Duren. I just feel like it's not the ideal path, I guess, for what JB Bickerstaff wants to do.
Yeah, I'm with you. The only difference I'd have is that I wouldn't be shocked. Like, I do not think that if we flash forward a couple of weeks and we get to the end of the series and that ends up being true, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think it'd be good. I think if the Pistons lose the series, maybe that's a fourth thing that I think I know, that Isaiah Stewart would have played more minutes per game than Jalen Duren did. Only because my expectation is that they kind of split. right? They're fairly even in terms of the split, both right around 24, 23, 25, somewhere in that range, right? So if Stu is playing more, and it's worse if it's significantly more, that means Duren's getting cooked, which it happens. It's happened in the past against Karl Anthony Towns. Okay, so there's precedent here that could be the case. I think Duren's really improved in his ability to move a little bit more in space and recover. It's still not perfect. He's still got a long way to go. But I'm hopeful that it's not going to be as bad as it was, say, early in the season, right? There was an early season Knicks game where Duren got benched early in the second half because he just did not close out on Karl Anthony Towns for the third, I believe, transition three in a row off of him, right? He was not recovering to the shooter in transition after touching the paint. So I think we're beyond that now. I like to think we're beyond that now. So if Stu averages more minutes, I think that's really bad for Detroit. It means that that's what was happening, right? It was that bad again. And by all accounts, it shouldn't be that bad. It may not be good. It shouldn't be that bad.
Yeah, agree. And I think Duren, I mean, not perfect by any means, but we have seen some improvement from him. So I think he'll be intentional about like not getting it to that point by any means. So I'd be surprised if it got that bad. Like you said, it could definitely happen, but I'm hoping that we're past that.
Me as well. And look, we got good reason to believe that we are past that. He's just not been tested in this way in a while, outside of that Knicks game, where, I mean, Cat had a pretty good night outside of Isaiah Stewart getting in his head a little bit, which I do think that will be repeatable. I'm looking forward to watching that matchup a little bit. Let's close on this, Blake. This is from our guy, Mimsy313. It says, Trajan Langdon said he liked how the young guys responded quickly to JB's message after getting coaching change whiplash. Do you think being rookies in the playoffs here holds an advantage, like that there is no egos in the room?
I do. I think this is a huge advantage for the Pistons in the sense that they have nothing to lose. And I think with this matchup specifically, like honestly, of the three teams, the Knicks, the Pacers, the Bucks that the Pistons could have potentially seen in the playoffs, I think this gives the Pistons the biggest advantage against the Knicks because, in my opinion, the Knicks have the most to lose, really. You could argue the Bucks because it's another year of Giannis and getting sent home early, but they had the Dame health thing, and I know he's better, but the Pacers are still a fairly young team. And I think with the Knicks, especially after they made these trades for Michael Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns, and yes, it's the first year with those players, but like they've given up, like this is their team. This is the group that they have to win with. And I think that gives the Pistons a huge advantage because I mean, you can certainly be scared going into the playoffs. And like, I don't think the Knicks are necessarily scared to lose, but I think if they do drop this series, like that's a big, like, oh no. And whereas I think obviously it would be disappointing if the Pistons underperform and lose the series, like we'll all be sad to see this magical season end. But I just think in general, like in situations like this, being the team with nothing to lose is a huge advantage.
Yeah, I think that's how I would put it as well. Like, I don't think being playoff rookies is an advantage. I really think that playoff experience is a huge plus. All right, but to me, I think there are two things working in the Pistons' favor here. Okay, one, yes, the Knicks have playoff experience. They also have playoff choke experience. I don't mean to be that blunt, but it's true. It's just a few years ago when they lost the series to the Atlanta Hawks, right? When they had intentionally dropped from the third seed down to the fourth seed, and Trae Young lit them up. Last year they didn't make it to the conference finals. They probably should have. They're very talented. The Minnesota Timberwolves last year, I know Luka was going off, but they probably should have won that series. They had a deeper and better team, and that's where Karl Anthony Towns, at least in my opinion, that's where he's coming from. So I think they have a lot of pressure. Like you just said, not only did the front office and ownership invest a bunch into this year being like the all-in season, they mortgaged a bunch of future capital. So not only do you have that pressure, but they also have recent-ish and probably very vivid memories of what it feels like when it starts going wrong. And so I think that could be an advantage for Detroit because not only is all the pressure on their shoulders, the Knicks' shoulders, but you could give them that, oh no, here we go again sort of feeling, and that can be really powerful, right? That can be really important. And then I think the other one is just, like you said, the Pistons have nothing to lose, so they're playing with house money, and they're too young to know any better, right? This is their first experience with the playoffs, like MC313 here. He said, like you said, they are playoff rookies. I don't know if it's necessarily an advantage, but I think that the lack of self-awareness could probably lessen the pressure that they have coming in to this series. Add on to that they've actually played really well at Madison Square Garden already twice this year, so the bright lights shouldn't be that bright in the Garden here for Detroit. Maybe too young, too stupid, not experienced enough, whatever you want to put it as. It could help reduce the pressure, which I think would be otherwise your worry here with a young team in the playoffs.
Right. And it's just like with the Pistons window right now is much longer than the Knicks. And if the Knicks have another early exit, that's just another year gone in this. And like, I know it's the first year with Towns, the first year with Bridges, but still, like, you have a defined window that the Pistons don't have, and that's pressure to get it done, or at least like take a step to being where you want to be.
All right, and just very quickly, do the Pistons have any advantages against the Knicks? Do you think? This is again from MC313.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily because they're the younger team, but like, I think they have the best player in this series, and I think that's probably the most valuable advantage that you can have. If someone wanted to argue it's Brunson over Cade, I wouldn't be mad. Like, I get it.
I would.
I'd
be mad. I vehemently disagree.
Yeah, I think Cade is like the clear answer for me. So I think that's like the main advantage that sticks out to me. Again, not necessarily because they're younger, but just who they are as a team.
I might go so far as to say that is the only advantage head-to-head that Detroit has to the Knicks, both like going up and down the lineups and in terms of team production over the year. Maybe we can say that the Pistons were a better three-point shooting team, but mostly that is because of volume, not percentage. Okay, so I would hesitate before saying the Pistons are the better shooting team between these two. The good news for Pistons fans, in the playoffs, star power really matters. Right? So, like you said, if you could pick of all the advantages to have going into a series, what would be the best advantage? I think the best possible advantage is to say I have the best player and you don't. And we're going to try to figure it out from there. And that's the position the Pistons are in. So even though they're the underdog, and rightfully so, I don't think that the Pistons should be favored in this series. The Knicks are a better team. They're a deeper team. They've got more star power. They've got more experience. But the Pistons have the best player on the floor for every single game that these two teams are going to play. And they're too young to know any better. That they shouldn't be here, or that the Knicks should walk away with this. So I think that's their advantage. Like you said, playing with house money, and then you got Cade, and that goes a long way in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was just gonna, it's literally the most important advantage. Can you win the series without the best player? Sure, but it's the most important to me.
It's what keeps the other team up at night. Right? Like, that's the one thing that if it's not true for you, you are panicking a little bit about. If you're Tom Thibodeau, you are losing sleep trying to figure out what to do about Cade Cunningham because he is that good and you don't have a Cade Cunningham on your roster, right? Like, that is the most important advantage, especially now when you're in, and this will be the last thing, but especially when you're playing the same team over and over and over again, because you've got at least 4 games here. That's 4 games where the best player on the court is on the other side learning and figuring out how to beat you. That is tough. That is really tough.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree. I think unequivocally to me, Cade is the best player in the series. And I think that is the most important thing, no matter how much we want to break it down. So I think that's a good way to close it, unless you had any final thoughts, Wes.
Do the Pistons win? Do they steal a game here in Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, I was going to say, if we're looking big picture in terms of like a way the Pistons win the series, I think stealing a game 1 or 2 would be huge. I think they steal one.
I do. I agree. I think they're stealing one. I think when we record next week, they would have only played 2 games, right? If we record on a Thursday.
Check the schedule again. But
they're at least 1-1.
Yeah.
That's my expectation.
All right. There we go. We mark it. Yeah. We mark it as that. But yeah, feel free to drop your questions for next week. We're going to have so much to talk about next week. So let us know what's on your mind. Call our phone line to ask a question, hear your voice on the show. Even if you just want to vent about something, we'll listen to it, talk about it. The number for
might not play it.
Depending on what it is.
Yeah, if it's a short
definitely
vent.
Listen. Yeah, the number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to our guy, Sean Corp, the managing editor for Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week. We hope you enjoy some playoff basketball for the first time in forever. I'm really excited. I know everyone is. But yeah, we'll see you guys next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.